Okay. This is part 5. Rosina's coming-of-age ceremony. Winter was approaching its midpoint, and I was walking back to my chambers after completing the dedication ritual for the day. Sister Mine, what will we do for the coming-of-age ceremony? Fran suddenly asked. I blinked in surprise, not entirely sure what he was getting at. Coming-of-age ceremony? But I only just recently had my baptism. Not yours, Sister Mine. Rosina's. Fran, with a hand over his mouth to hold back a burst of laughter, clarified what he meant. That surprised me too. My jaw dropped and my eyes widened. Rosina's coming-of-age ceremony? Yes, Rosina will come of age toward the end of winter. I had no idea. I couldn't hide my disappointment in myself for being such a bad master that I didn't even know such basic facts about my attendants. Gray Shrine Maidens are given clothes to wear by the temple upon coming of age. That is all apprentices within the temple get, but it is not uncommon for attendants serving a blue robe to be given a gift by the master. Fran explained how the coming-of-age ceremony worked within the orphanage. Those coming of age would bathe early in the morning, put on their newly given clothes, and then finally offer their prayers and gratitude in the chapel. This would all be before the lower city's coming-of-age ceremony began at their bell. In other words, the baptism and coming-of-age ceremonies for those in the orphanage had been finished while I was in my room practicing the Harspiel. I haven't said a single word of celebration to any of the kids in the orphanage. Was that really acceptable for the orphanage director? I had been pretty busy since coming to the temple. I felt like that was a bad excuse. The blood dripped from my face, which earned me a chuckle from Fran. As an apprentice, you are generally not allowed to participate in temple ceremonies. It is not your fault that you were unaware of this. You were bedridden during summer's coming-of-age ceremony and fall's baptism ceremony, and we were all busy with winter preparations during fall's coming-of-age ceremony. Furthermore, it would introduce inequality if you were to begin celebrating for some despite others having received no such celebration. Everything in the orphanage was generally kept as equal as possible, so Fran often warned against anything that might introduce inequality. But even if I couldn't give the orphans gifts, I at least wanted to offer them some words of celebration. Sister Mine, please do not think of giving gifts to the orphans, Fran reiterated. That will only introduce problems in the long term. I could see where he was coming from. I might choose to give gifts during my tenure as an orphanage director, but there was no guarantee that my successor would, and now that it was set in stone that I would be going to the Royal Academy when I turned 10, I wouldn't be staying here as orphanage director for very long. Fran wanted me to think about the long-term implications of my actions. I would like to note that I mentioned blue robes giving gifts to their attendants because you are the kind of person who gives her attendants gifts regularly without prompting. Sister Maya, it's not something that one has to do. I hadn't noticed myself, but it seemed that Fran had gone out of his way to inform me of Rosina's coming-of-age ceremony because he assumed I would want to give her a present. And he was right. I didn't even know which seasons my attendants had been born in. I knew that Rosina was close to coming of age, but I didn't know when her ceremony was. Thank you for telling me, Fran. I will think about what to give Rosina, but first, may I ask what the High Priest gave you after your coming-of-age ceremony? A pen and an ink. I had used that pen to this very day. I recall being quite happy for I felt that he was accepting me as an adult. Fran broke into a warm smile as he spoke. I could guess that he had told me about Rosina's coming-of-age ceremony, specifically because his own was such a happy memory for him. As her master, I needed to think of a gift that would make Rosina happy, but I was often wrong in my guesses for what people would like, so it was absolutely essential that I investigate what kind of presents were normal for coming-of-age ceremonies. First, I would ask those close to me what they knew. Lutz was an obvious place to start, but I wouldn't be able to see him until the blizzard stopped, and the only one close to me in the temple, aside from my attendants, was the High Priest, which meant... High Priest, one of my attendants is about to come of age. What will be a normal gift for me to give her? I asked once we finished our work for the day. He looked at me with slightly wide eyes, murmured the quite rude comment, "That is a rare, sensible question from you," then cleared his throat. The best gift is one that the recipient will use for a long time, so as this is a ceremony to celebrate them coming of age. A standard gift, then, is one they will use at work. I give each of my attendants a pen and ink. Something Rosina will use often and for work. Well, that just leaves an instrument, I thought aloud, earning me a cold glare from the High Priest. Fool, who would ever give an expensive instrument to their attendant when they do not even own one themselves? Buy one for yourself before thinking of giving one to your attendant, he said with a tinge of annoyance. That called for a tactical retreat. You're right. Thank you for your thoughts. I'll try and think of something else. I mean, you could go with something involving music, just not an instrument. Days after the High Priest had lectured me, the blizzard finally weakened. Tuli, Lutz, and Benno all came to my chambers together. Are you doing okay, mine? Asked Tuli. Tuli, Lutz, oh, and Benno! I'm going to go study in the orphanage, but these two wanted to talk about something. Tuli went off right after saying hello, but Lutz and Benno came into my chambers. Benno straightened the second he noticed Daniel inside. Sister mine, I humbly request that you allow a Laharl to be trained as a waiter under your care. Benno wanted me to train a Laharl named Leon in my chambers. I glanced at Fran, who would be the one potentially training him. Fran, do you think it would be acceptable for me to agree to this? As I have recently become able to entrust work to Rosina and Wilma, I do have the time to teach specifically the art of waiting during lunchtime, he replied. I noticed that his expression was just a little more stiff than usual, and kept that in mind as I looked back at Benno. Very well, Benno. We will teach him only how to be a waiter. So please be sure to send someone who has been fully trained. Fully trained? Benno gave me a curious look. His employees were trained thoroughly so that they would be equipped to handle rich customers. Lutz and I had learned that well while visiting his store. We were treated so as guests of honor while being taken to his office, and since Benno respected our business, nobody ever treated us with disdain. It made sense that Benno would expect any of his employees to be well trained enough to learn here. Fran will be teaching your employee, but he is a Grey Priest and an orphan. We firmly refuse to deal with anyone so untrained as to scorn or look down on him. I had heard from Fran that while all of Benno's employees were polite to customers, only about half of them were polite to servants. There were some in the store who gave Fran nasty looks while he waited for me to finish talking to Benno in the back office. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, so you mean to say that such untrained individuals are in my store? My apologies. It seemed that my training has been insufficient after all. If Leon is by chance one such untrained individual, please inform me at once so that I may cancel his Laharl contract immediately. Ooh. Oh, Leon, you better hope to God that you are not, or rather the God of darkness and God of light, that you are not one of those. Fran, do you have any other requests, or will that be all? Well, I do not mind teaching Leon to be a waiter, but we will not provide food for him. The food here is made for Sister Mine. Worry not, I will cover his food just as I am covering Lutz's. Benno and Fran began discussing the details of the agreement, so I beckoned Lutz over and started whispering. Lutz, there's something I want to talk about. What? You got another crazy plot up your sleeve? A trace of caution arose on Lutz's face, and both Fran and Benno stopped their discussion to look our way after hearing him. Crazy plot? That's so mean, Lutz. I'm talking about Rosina's coming-of-age ceremony. Do you know what kind of gifts are usually given after those? Zasha must be coming of age soon. My parents will probably give him tools for work. The ones they gave him after his baptism were small ones for kids. The tools given to children after their baptism were generally lighter so that they could carry them, or just smaller in general. But that made it hard to keep using them as the children grew older. Some bought new ones before growing up, and others received larger hand-me-downs, but otherwise they were given brand new work tools when they came of age. Tools for craftsmen. Okay, Benno, what gifts do merchants usually give after coming-of-age ceremonies? I give accessories to my family and clothing to my Laharls. Both are necessary for being presentable to nobles. Don't you give anything to your Lahanges? I do not. Well, then again, I think Lahanges usually are still there, or they become Laharls by the time they come of age. So I don't think that really matters in this. I could be wrong, let me know. The Laharls were essential to the future of the store and would be brought to meetings once they came of age, but most Lahanges left once their final contract was up, so there was no need to give them any celebratory gifts. Oh, okay, never mind, that answered my question for me. Accessories and clothes are fine, but I don't feel like Rosina would use either of them very much. But she's going to start pinning her hair up, right? Maybe give her a comb or a ribbon or something, suggested Lutz. Maybe a nicely decorated hairpin would be a good present for her. I wrote that down on my diptych. If you need a hairpin for a gift, please feel free to order one through Lutz. Thank you for your thoughts. Benno returned to his store after finishing his discussion with Fran. I accompanied Lutz to the orphanage. Fran and Daniel in tow so that I could go see Tuli. Tuli's working hard, Lutz observed. Mine, you should write her a letter using simple words. Okay, I think I will, thanks. Excuse me. It seemed that Lutz had been occasionally tutoring Thule. He said he was just doing what I had done for him last year, but thanks to that, she was managing to not fall completely behind the orphanage kids. Now, please attempt to complete this problem. The temple school was covering math today. I headed over to Wilma, watching Thule glare at her calculator out of the corner of my eye. Well, Wilma and Rosina had both served under the same master. Perhaps I could learn something from what Wilma was given upon coming of age. Oh yes, that reminds me. Rosina is coming of age this winter, said Wilma. That's right, though I'm not sure what I should give her. May I ask what Sister Christine gave you when you came of age, Wilma? A conflicted smile arose on Wilma's face. I came of age after Sister Christine left the temple, so I was not given anything in particular. What? In that case, I need to get you a gift as well. It never crossed my mind that Wilma might not have been given anything, so I hurriedly suggested that I buy her something as well, but she just giggled, her lips curled into an endearing smile. Sister mine, if you're concerned about that, you will need to give gifts to almost all of your attendants. Delia and Gil had not been given anything for their baptism ceremonies either, she explained. And will it not dampen Rosina's celebration if you also give presents to me, Gil, and Delia? Not to mention that Fran might feel left out as the only one not getting anything. All I wanted was for everyone to be happy, but it was so hard to make that happen. Wilma, wearing her usual peaceful smile, leaned forward as I fell into thought. We servants are happy to be given any gift from our master. Not to mention, anything Rosina wants will ultimately be related to music. Perhaps she would appreciate some new sheet music? New sheet music? That might just be it. Though it would have to be quite rare music for it to not have been in Sister Christine's collection. Well, let's just say it'll be easy for me to find new music for her. Yeah, because she's got all her knowledge from Earth. The next day, I visited the High Priest. High Priest, I've decided to give Rosina new sheet music for her coming-of-age ceremony. Please teach me how to write sheet music. What songs do you even intend to write down? Ones I remember, of course. If it would be unreasonably difficult for me to find music here that the art-loving shrine maiden Sister Christine didn't have, then all I had to do was write down songs I remember from Earth. It wouldn't be too hard as long as I knew how to write sheet music, surely. Ones you remember from your dreams, you mean? Yes, I can't think of any other songs that Rosina wouldn't know already. Fran, bring me the harpspiel from her room. Understood, Fran replied. While Fran was getting my instrument, the High Priest taught me how to write sheet music. Naturally, it was quite different from the sheet music I remembered. The scales I could write using the sheet music I had been given as a reference, but I had no clue about other notations and conventions. I have returned. Thank you, Fran. I plucked the small harpspiel Fran brought me while searching my memory for music. Oh, that's not it. Maybe this? Oh, right. It goes like this. I'm not even going to try to hum. I don't even know what the freak. Once I had worked out a measure of the song, I wrote it down on a sheet and asked the High Priest to double-check it for me. High Priest, have I written this correctly? Enough of this. Give me the harpspiel. It was at the fifth measure that the High Priest lost his patience with me and took the instrument from my hands. He raised the small child-sized harpspiel and glared at me. You sing, I shall work out the notes. It will be much faster for me to write the music than for you to learn to do it yourself. Prompted on by his sharp look, I began humming the song. I continued until the High Priest raised a hand, signaling for me to stop. I did, and he began strumming out the entire part that I had just hummed. My jaw slowly dropped as he adjusted the notes, arranging the song into one fit to play on the harpspiel, and then wrote it out on the sheet. Is there anything the High Priest can't do? I don't know. Not only had he grasped the song entirely from my humming, he had even arranged it for the harpspiel and put it down on paper in the blink of an eye. Mine, do you know any other songs? There aren't many songs I could play from memory, but if humming is all you need, then I know a lot more. My answer earned me a satisfied nod from the High Priest. Then hum. What? I was just thinking that I would like some new music for myself. Yes, in fact, I think I would like 3 more songs. He was going out of his way to arrange the songs and write them out for me, so I didn't mind humming 3 more songs for him. I went ahead and even took the opportunity to mix in some anime songs. Oh my god! Which ones? Come on, mention them, please! It was kind of fun to watch the High Priest playing anime music to test the notes and arrange the song. Oh god, why couldn't they put that in the show? I would have loved that. You may copy these and give them to her. I thank you ever so much. I put the High Priest's handwritten music sheet in my drawer and stealthily copied them whenever I saw Rosina and Fran busy with paperwork. Once I had finished copying all 4 songs, I had Let's poke holes down their sides and tie them together with string for convenience. All done. And so the coming-of-age ceremony was held on the last Earth day of winter. Delia and Guild worked hard to draw water first thing in the morning, which Rosina bathed in. Once done, she put on her new gray shrine maiden robes provided to her by the temple. Her skirt used to be short enough to show her calves, but now it went down to her shoes, and on top of that, she now had her hair bundled up behind her head. I feel like it's a waste for you to be bundling your pretty hair up, Rosina. I felt a little sad thinking about how I would no longer get to see Rosina's luscious, wavy chestnut hair trailing behind her. Delia, on the other hand, was looking at Rosina's hair with envy. It's not a waste. I wish I could be bundling up my hair right now. Wilma always bundled her hair up in a tight, plain ball, but Rosina had decided to leave hers loose and feminine. Rosina already looked mature for her age, so the moment she bundled her hair up, she looked like an adult woman. Her slender... God dang it. She looked like an adult woman. Her slender white nape became fully visible, and the strands of glimmering hair that hung out of place somehow made her look so much more sensual. You really are pretty, Rosina. I let out an odd sigh at Rosina's adult appearance, which made her smile with embarrassment. Jeez, yelled Delia. I'll be even more beautiful when I'm all grown up. I'm sure. You'll certainly be beautiful too, Delia. I gave Delia an amused smile, then congratulated Rosina and saw her off to the chapel where the coming-of-age ceremony was being held. See you soon, Rosina. Indeed, until then, sister mine. Since both Blue Priests and Grey Priests would be busy with the coming-of-age ceremony, I didn't need to help the High Priest of work today, and Rosina wasn't here to teach me to play the harpspiel. Having nothing else to do, I went to the orphanage of Fran and Daniel to have Wilma make Peru cake batter. I had no intention of teaching Ella the recipe, but I knew the children would be attracted to the smell if she cooked them in the girls' building. That was why I asked her to come to my kitchen, since she had made the batter so that we could cook there instead. Wilma, would you care to come to my chambers for Rosina's sake? There will be men there, but they're all ones you know. I think Rosina would be happier if you were there to celebrate with her. I believe I would care to come. I've grown more used to men through working with Grey Priests in the dining hall and workshops, so I believe I can briefly partake in a celebration. Which is good! She's getting better at it! I started to return to my chambers with Wilma, who was carrying a bowl of Peru cake batter. Fran and Daniel met her with wide eyes, choosing to walk at a distance from her so that she would feel comfortable. I have returned, sister mine. Welcome back, Rosina. We've been waiting. Rosina returned to my chambers prior to the third bell once the coming-of-age ceremony had ended. When she came walking up the second floor, I took her hand and guided her to a seat. Sister mine? Go ahead and sit down, Rosina. But I cannot sit down while my master still stands. Rosina firmly refused to sit down. I looked up at her, not sure what to do, and Fran pulled back my own seat with a sigh. Rosina is correct, sister mine. If you want her to sit down, you must first sit down yourself. I obediently sat down in my seat, after which Rosina followed suit, a troubled look on her face. At that moment, a sweet, fluffy scent drifted in from the kitchen. Wilma? Squeaked Rosina, her eyes wide in surprise. Wilma had a welcoming smile on her face as she set a plate of Peru cakes down in front of her. Delia, beside her, on the other hand, looked especially serious as she poured a cup of tea. Today we celebrate you, Rosina, said Wilma. At Sister Mine's suggestion, I cooked these for you. They look quite delicious. Rosina looked at the Peru cakes and the carefully poured tea, then at all of us surrounding the table, tears welling up in her blue eyes. I looked up at Fran, who went and retrieved the sheet music from my desk. These songs are my gift to you. If you would like, please practice and play them for me. I know none of these songs. How in the world did you... Sister mine, I thank you ever so much. You gathered everyone here for my sake, and I don't know what to say. Rosina beamed a sparkling smile while hugging the bundle of sheet music to her chest. Congratulations on coming of age, Rosina. May the gods bless you and the future that awaits you. Aww. Okay. Rum toff and shoes. Although the calendar said it was now spring, all that meant was fewer blizzards. The cold was still unforgiving enough that it felt like anything but spring was outside. That said, fewer blizzards meant that Tuli could come visit me more often. I was getting closer to returning home every day, and I couldn't wait. One day, Tuli brought a small jar with her. So mine, weren't we supposed to eat this in the winter? What should we do with it now? You just kind of left it where it was since you weren't there. Mom asked me to ask you what to do with it. She set the jar on the table and opened it up. The sharp scent of alcohol immediately rushed into my nose. Inside the jar was drupe fruit soaking in wine. It was the rum top jar I had been letting stew back at home. I let out a squeak, having entirely forgotten how hard I worked to jam fruit into those back in the summer. God, we've got sugar and honey here, plus the jam I made, so I completely forgot about this stuff. I knew it. The rumtoff, a mix of various fruits soaked in wine, was completely ready. The sharp corners of the fruit had rounded as it started to melt into the wine. It was ready to eat right away, but what will be the tastiest way to eat it? This is hard. At the time I was thinking of making ice cream or pudding for it, but Peru cakes are the easiest sweets to bake at home. That was back in the summer before I found out I'd be spending all winter in the temple. My plan had been to bring sugar and the rumtoff to Letz's place for them to cook. They would share their eggs, milk, and labor for my ice cream and pudding recipes, which could then be eaten with the chopped up rumtoff fruit sprinkled on top. But that plan was ruined now that I couldn't go to Letz's place. I would need to think of a simple way for my family to eat it at home. We can just eat these on top of Peru cakes? Tully asked. You cut the fruit up into tiny bits first. I think Dad will be happy if you and Mom eat the fruit, but leave him the wine that's left over. And if you want to put it on something other than just Peru cakes, it's nice on French toast too. We made that together once before, remember? There's also Rumtoff was usually eaten with Stollen, a traditional German fruit bread, but our home lacked an oven we could bake bread in. Mine, calm down. What can we make here that we can eat it with? We can't use Peru cakes, right? Right. I wanted to avoid Ella learning about the Peru cake recipe if possible, which meant that we couldn't make Peru cakes if we wanted the help of a chef. But there also wasn't enough Rumtoff to feed everyone if we involved the orphans and used the kitchen in the girls' building. This is tricky. Stollen is a classic, but it takes a little too much time to make for us to eat today. Maybe I'll have Ella make crepes instead. You don't mind making that recipe public? Tully, knowing that my recipes were valuable both for the Italian restaurant and for selling to Frida, looked a little cautious. Fran, how long would it take for you to prepare a cream? Given how cold it is, not long at all. How much do you need? I turned around and saw that Fran already had his diptych out ready to take notes. The fat and unprocessed milk naturally separated from the liquid if kept somewhere cold. As long as you had milk, it wasn't too hard to make cream, though you had to be a little careful since it would turn into clotted cream if it lost too much water. A cup's worth of cream and a cup's worth of milk will do. We could have made galettes using the buckwheat flour in the kitchen's pantry, but I personally preferred plain wheat cream. Plain wheat. I can't talk. I can't say this sentence. Plain wheat crepes. Oh my God. Sweets which used sugar were generally eaten by nobles, and if I was going to use the kitchen in my chambers, it would probably be better to aim to make noble food rather than mimic things eaten in the lower city. We were going to make crepes with whipped cream and chopped up rumtoff. Fran went to the noble zone of the temple to get cream from the large ice room he assured me was there, and while he was gone, I got to work writing down the crepe recipe. Ella would have to make the crepes going entirely off my instructions. So Tully, there's this food that people make by mixing buckwheat flour with water and salt to make batter, which they then cook with ham and cheese. Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh! Bouclettes? That sounds about right. Now knowing what they call galettes here, I wrote cooked in like a bouclette. As I finished up the recipe, Fran returned with 2 handled pitchers containing milk and cream respectively. He set them down in the kitchen before coming up to the second floor where I showed him the board with the recipe written on it. Fran, please direct Ella to make these. Tell her that they are cooked like bouclettes and that I only want her to cook the batter. That is, with nothing inside of it. That'll probably be enough for her to understand. Please bring them up on the plate once they are done. Understood. I handed a recipe to Fran, at which point Tully stood up holding the rumtoff jar. Fran, can I watch her cook? I'll help if I can. It was clear that Tully really wanted to see a pro chef at work, so I stepped in on her behalf. Fran, Tully is quite used to my recipes and won't get in the way. Try asking Ella if she wouldn't mind working with her. I would like to go myself, but I know that would just make everyone too nervous to work properly. I'll wait here while you take care of Tully. Making sweets together was very girly. It just seemed really nice. If you asked me, all winter Ella had been cooking with Nicola and Monica as her helpers, and even during their breaks, it sounded like they were having a ton of fun as they chatted away. I would have liked to go cook with Tully, but as an apprentice Blue Shrine Maiden, I had no choice but to sit back. Rich girls actually have it rough, huh? Tully looked at me with sympathy, knowing that I wasn't truly free even in my own chambers. I gave her a firm nod. Here in the temple, I was the weird one with a different upbringing, so it was really nice to have someone who could sympathize with my plight. Everyone cares so much about appearances here. Appearances like your socks? Tula and I both looked down at my feet, then we made eye contact and laughed. Acting like a real rich girl really was rough. Sister mine, what was that about your socks? After Tuli and Fran left for the kitchen, Delia walked up with her eyes full of gleaming curiosity. I couldn't help but smile. Delia always slid over when the topic moved to clothes or hair. We were just joking about how odd these socks are. Or about how cold these socks are. My socks were made of thin fabric and long enough to go halfway up my thighs, held up by string since there wasn't any rubber in this world. Every morning when getting dressed in the temple, I first had a cloth belt tied around my waist. Then I had socks pulled up to my legs, which were tied to the belt using long strings. It was basically like a simple garter belt. I then put on something like a pair of culottes, which were thin and went down past my knees. Strings were threaded around the cuff by my knees, allowing me to tighten them around my legs. It wasn't exactly the best underwear I could ask for. It was a lot more brazy down there. I don't need to know that! More than it was in my Irano days. Finally, after all that, I put on a shirt. Good God. Underwear! Why does all that have to be complicated? Good God. No matter what, my bare legs weren't allowed to be visible. Showing one's bare legs was considered shameful in the upper class, especially among nobles. So men and women always wore socks without fail. It was a matter of personal grooming and courtesy, such that anyone not wearing socks was seen as embarrassing. I started wearing socks once I was given the Gilberta Company apprentice clothes, and now in the temple, even Grey Priests and Shrine Maidens always wore socks. Sister Wine, what do you mean the socks are cold? Unlike here, the socks of the lower city are made with practicality in mind. They were for warmth, not fashion. Nobody wore them in the summer. When winter came, we stuffed our feet into what were essentially bags woven out of wool, which we then tightened with string. They only went up to our ankles, though, which meant we also put on wool-woven leg warmers to cover up to our knees. Add on layers of pants to that, and it would be as warm as could be. But Tuli's socks aren't fashionable at all, Delia complained. Indeed, but there are times when one prefers warmth to fashion. If you're worried about warmth, why don't you just buy long boots? Nobles were so concerned about fashion and appearances that they didn't use wool leg warmers. Instead, they wore fur-lined boots that reached all the way up to their knees. Those boots would definitely be warm, but I hadn't realized we weren't allowed to wear leg warmers in the temple, and I was already so broke I didn't bother ordering fur-lined boots. Instead, I was using the short leather boots that Gilberta Company apprentices wore, designed with mobility in mind. If only I were an adult and could hide them under a long skirt. These socks did nothing to stop the cold when I was walking through the temple. But when I tried to put on leg warmers, Rosina stopped me. My skirts only went to my knees, so any leg warmers I put on would be completely visible. I let out a disappointed sigh, and Delia's eyebrows shot up as she gave me a sharp look. Geez, you can't slack on fashion, even if nobody can see. Wow, Delia's girl power really is off the charts. I cared more about warmth than fashion, but I was in Rome and had to do as the Romans did. I'll remember to order longer boots for next winter. I would not like to suffer through this cold again. That would be for the best. Considering what happens in this book and the next book, you might not have to worry about that in the next winter. Sister Mine, interjected Rosina, having found a break in her work. You must order some new shoes soon. You do not have a single pair of fashionable fancy shoes that a proper lady should be wearing. I believe it would be wise for you to ask Master Benno to summon a shoemaker. She advised me that with the spring prayer coming up, I might find myself in trouble if I only had a pair of plain shoes. There's still enough time for them to finish before spring prayer if you order them soon. Rosina, tell me about things like this sooner so I have time to prepare. Yes, I shall be more proactive from now on. I just was not entirely aware of all that you lack, Sister Mine. Rosina had never even considered that I might actually only have one pair of shoes. She had assumed that I always appeared to be wearing the same shoes because I had multiple pairs, and only once I began living in the temple over the winter did she realize the shocking truth. There were two kinds of shoes used in the lower city. The Sabbat-esque wooden shoes that poor people wore, and the leather shoes worn by the rich. Those who didn't even have wooden shoes either wrapped rags around their feet or just walked around barefoot, which wasn't particularly rare. Oh God, I feel bad for those in the winter then. I had always worn wooden shoes up until I was given my Gilberta Company apprentice clothes, and it never occurred to me that I might need to buy new shoes before I had worn out my existing ones. My new surroundings had changed my perspective on shoes, even though I had owned several pairs for different occasions back in my Irano days. I opened up my diptych and wrote, Ask Benno to order shoes on it. So, Sister Mine, what kind of leather would you use? Horse leather? Pig leather? Oh, what about ordering a pair of cloth shoes as well, just in case? Delia's eyes were sparkling. She really was quick to bite when fashion was involved. But sadly for her, I had absolutely no fashion knowledge. There was no way I could make informed decisions on what shoes to buy when I didn't know what designs were popular or what materials were most commonly used or anything like that. My plan was to let Rosina choose and learn from her example. I wouldn't trust the designing of my shoes to Rosina. Please order the ones I will need most in the near future. If I was to order my own shoes, I would just end up ordering what I already have. Understood. You may count on me. Rosina began to explain which kind of shoes were expected to be worn in which kind of situations, and before long, Fran and Tuli came up from the kitchen with plates. One had freshly beaten, pure white cream, while the other had chopped up Rumtoff. Delia, please prepare the tea. Understood. At Fran's order, Delia headed to the kitchen. Tuli and Fran then lined up cutlery before returning to the kitchen, coming back with a plate holding 2 round, freshly cooked crepes. One for me and one for Tuli. I apologize for the wait, sister mine. Fran set the plate in front of me. The crepes looked exactly like the ones I remembered. A sweet scent tickled my nose and made me break out into a smile. Where's Daniel in all this? I could have swore that he would be there with you. So why didn't you make one for him if he's there? I helped cut these, Tuli said proudly, pointing at the plate of Rumtoff. She then told me how skilled Ella was and how hard her helpers had worked. Fran, my apologies, but could you bring some honey as well? Also, please ask Ella to come up here if possible. For what purpose? I wish to show her how to properly plate these sweets. In the future, she will make them from beginning to end in the kitchen. I knew that Fran would not be fond of bringing a chef up to the second floor, but I didn't want Ella to think that the process of making a crepe was done once you've cooked the batter. I can teach you the final steps, sister mine, so I believe you need only show me what to do next. Then watch carefully, Fran. With everyone's eyes were on me, I scooped up cream with a spoon and slathered it on 1/6 of the closer half of the fan-shaped crepe. Then I spooned up some of the chopped Rumtoff to sprinkle on top. Spread the cream across the closer half of the crepe, such that it forms a triangle. It is best for the layer of cream to be somewhat thin. Then sprinkle the Rumtoff on top of the cream. The more, the better here. Rumtoff can be swapped out for whatever fruit is in season, so it isn't necessarily required. I poured a little honey on top of the Rumtoff as I explained, then folded the crepe before rolling it up. Doing this allows you to eat the crepe with your hands. If you want to use cutlery like a noble, then you can just keep folding it without rolling it up. Then you just have to decorate it with cream, fruit, and honey to finish it off. I unrolled the crepe on top of the plate and added some cream beside it, along with some cut Rumtoff and honey decoration. Fran blinked in surprise several times at the sight of the completed crepe. This certainly would be presentable to nobles. Wow, it's so cute. I bet it tastes good, mine. Tuli, brimming with excitement, started preparing the crepe on her plate. Delia was watching us, filled with curiosity, but she had to wait until we were finished eating. I thought it was sad that I couldn't eat with my attendants, but it was a strict rule I had no say in. All done, Tuli announced, sounding very much satisfied as she looked at her plate. She had done a pretty good job considering she had 0 experience decorating plates like that. O mighty king and queen of the endless skies, who doth grace us with thousands upon thousands of lives to consume. O mighty eternal five who rule the mortal realm, I offer thanks and prayers to thee, and do take part in the meal so graciously provided. This is the only time I've ever done any kind of praying. Praying, quote unquote. Because I'm not religious. I'm not an atheist or anything. I just don't have any religion. I cut off a mouthful from the part of the crepe without any cream on and plopped it into my mouth. The crepe was soft, fairly sweet, and very lightly crusted around the edges. Then I cut off a part with cream. The cream itself, accompanied by the crepe's somewhat springy bread, wasn't that sweet, but the honey I poured over it added just the right amount of indescribable sweetness. After savoring the taste for a while, I finally tucked into the Rumtoff. The second I bit into the melted fruit, my mouth was filled with a sharp taste of alcohol and an intense sweetness. What do you think, Tuli? It tastes great, mine. Tuli beamed me, a full smile, cream dotting her mouth. Tuli, your mouth is covered in cream. That's 'cause these are hard to eat. It took some dexterity to properly eat crepes using cutlery. I smiled at Tuli's battle with the crepe, ending with the cream all over her mouth, thinking about how food tastes a lot better when you can eat it with someone else. This is perfect. I want to eat caramel custard next time. Maybe we can make it next time you visit, Tuli. More new sweets? Yay, I can't wait! With all my heart, I hope to go home as soon as possible so I can share these tasty sweets and this indescribable happiness with my whole family again. Oh boy. Do I want to keep going? I'm almost halfway through this dang thing already. Good lord. Completion of the metal letter types. After asking the high priest if I could let a merchant visit my chambers, I requested that Benno bring a shoemaker to me as soon as possible. Blessed be the melting of the snow. May the goddess of spring's boundless magnanimity grace you. Benno sang the greeting that celebrated the arrival of spring, entered my chambers with a couple of shoemakers. May you have the blessings of Lutraine, the goddess of water, and her subordinates, I said. I welcomed them in turn, remaining seated in the hall. With my bodyguard Daniel giving them hard looks, Benno the shoemaker who looked to be a similar age, and the shoemaker's assistant, measured my feet and asked me what kind of design I wanted, plus what material I wanted to use. Rosina thought aloud. Our highest priority is preparing shoes for spring prayer. She will need tall boots made of horse leather. White horse leather it is, then, Delia chimed. Delia, think well about this. The spring prayer will demand that she walk through farming towns. A darker color will be more suitable for this purpose. Rosina and Delia began discussing it among themselves without giving me a chance to speak my own mind. Fran was listening to them with a stiff expression because I had asked her to watch over them. Delia loved cute, pretty things. The fancier the better, in her eyes, and whenever shopping was involved, her excitement got out of control. There was no mistaking that she would make the shoes increasingly extravagant if left to her own devices. Rosina, on the other hand, had a good fashion sense and knew what I would need thanks to her time spent serving Sister Christine. But her sense of scale was a bit off. If she approached this like Sister Christine did, spending endless amounts of money to buy everything she wanted according to her taste and mood, I would end up broke. And just as I expected, she was adding to the order bit by bit, saying things like, these are quite wonderful, and we may as well use this opportunity to order these as well. It was Fran who put a firm stop to their madness. Delia, the shoes do not need more decoration than that. Rosina, Sister Mine is still growing, so she does not need such a large number of shoes. It would be best if we just purchase new ones over time as she grows. Thank you. Fran, the voice of reason here. Fran had previously been the high priest's attendant, so he knew well the bare minimum of dress that was necessary to satisfy society's demands. Both he and the high priest were men, so their appreciation of cute and pretty things cannot compare to Rosina's. He would simply rein Rosina and Delia back while they made the important choices, with my job being to make the final order. Sister Mine, will these do? Yes, I believe that 3 pairs will do just fine. In the end, we ordered a firm pair of tall horse leather boots that reached up to my knees and a soft pair of short pig leather boots for the spring prayer. A third and final pair would be fancy cloth shoes for wearing inside the temple and in the nobles' quarter, if you ever go there. Once the order was finished and the shoemaker was preparing to leave, Benno glanced my way. Forgive me, but I have something important to discuss with Sister Mine. Fran, could you take these 2 gentlemen to the gate? Delia can handle that, actually. Fran, please have her escort the gentleman out. Rosina, please prepare some tea. Fran nodded at Benno, then told Delia to escort the shoemaker and his assistant to the gate. She enthusiastically guided them out the door, in a good mood thanks to all the shopping. So, what do you want to talk about? Sister Mine, Johann came to my store the other day. It seems he had finished the task you gave him. I blinked in surprise. I had agreed to be the patron of the young smith Johann at the end of the autumn. He needed to complete a task to finish his Lahar apprenticeship, and I had given him one in the form of completing a catalog of metal letter types. What? Benno, when you say the task, you mean the letter types, correct? I didn't think he would finish them so fast. I had ordered both uppercase and lowercase versions of the 35 letters of the alphabet, and Johann's task had been to make me 50 types for each vowel and 20 for each consonant. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect he would finish them all over the winter. It seems that he would like you to appraise them, Sister Mine. A task the apprentice smiths needed to complete was ultimately an order from a customer. It was necessary that they first show the finished product to the customer and hear their appraisal. It would be preferable if you would come to my store to see them, but if that's not possible, may I bring Johann and the smithy's foreman here with me? I will ask the high priest. Very well. Daniel and the high priest were both very sensitive about people entering my chamber, so I couldn't answer better without first receiving their opinion on the matter. I informed Johann that you would be unable to visit the store as long as the snow remained, so I asked that you proceed extremely carefully and keep the high priest informed at all times. In other words, you better friggin' talk to the high priest. And so I immediately requested a meeting with the high priest. He had gotten through most of his built-up work over the winter, and maybe due to all the extra time he now had, it didn't take long at all for him to set up a meeting. High priest, would it be okay for a smith named Johann and his foreman to visit my chambers? The fact that you referred to him by name leads me to infer that he is an associate of yours. That's right. As its patron, I need to appraise what he has made for me. The high priest nodded, lightly tapping a finger against his temple. Mine, does this smith know that you are an apprentice blue shrine maiden? No, I have not mentioned it. Given that Johann thought it was Benno's daughter, I would imagine that Benno hasn't told him either. I see. In that case, do not invite him to the temple. It will be wise to go to Benno's store instead. Why could the shoemaker come but not Johann? I asked, tilting my head in confusion. The high priest sighed. The shoemaker visited the chambers of an apprentice blue shrine maiden at the Gilberta Company's introduction, but Johann will be visiting the temple to show mine of the Gilberta Company what she ordered. Ah. I put a hand over my mouth and the high priest narrowed his eyes. I gathered as much information as I could from various places over the winter, and it seems Benno has been hiding you quite well. Exceedingly few know the child with connections to the Gilberta Company is the same person as the temple's new apprentice blue shrine maiden, and likewise, few know your true identity. That reminded me, I had mentioned Benno always talking about keeping me out of public view, and even if even the high priest's investigation led him to conclude that not many people know about me, Benno must have been working really hard all this time. You may go to the store. I would not like to publicize that you were an apprentice blue shrine maiden. Okay, I'll go to the Gilberta Company. It was my first time going outside in a long time. I felt a giddy smile of relief creeping over my face at the prospect of getting to leave the temple. But I desperately tried to hold it back so as to hide my emotions like a proper noble would. Sadly, the high priest trashed my efforts with a single comment. The twitchy smile on your face is unsettling and disturbing. Daniel, you will protect mine while she is gone. Mine, it is essential that you prepare a carriage to take you to the store. Do not just walk about outside. You can contact Benno about the carriage. Furthermore, take care to minimize how much you are both seen in public. Understood. I'll be careful. I nodded at the high priest's list of warnings, letting my smile show freely. Just wait, my pretty little letter types. I'll come visit you as soon as I can. Naturally, I couldn't go straight away just because the decision had been made. It was first necessary that I call us from his work at the orphanage to send a message to Benno and ask that he prepare a carriage for me. Benno contacted the smithy and set up a date for our meeting. Since bad weather and blizzards could stall the carriage, it was possible that the meeting would be delayed. If these types match what I want, I'll need to order blank types and symbol types as well. I may as well write supply orders for them now. I wrote out my next supply orders before the meeting came. At the same time, I prepared what I needed to visit the store. If possible, I would want to demonstrate printing there. I think I should bring the ink, paper, baren, and rag just to be safe. It would be wise to show them how the types are used. Fran, please ask Gil to have the workshop prepare what I need. Understood. Sister mine, why in the world are you visiting a lower city store? Asked Delia with an exasperated expression as she walks me excitedly talking to Fran about what I need for my visit to the Gilberta Company. I had absolutely no idea how much information Delia was feeding back to the High Bishop, so I just smiled. I will be appraising goods. I am a patron of the arts, so fate would have it. My companions this time were Daniel and Fran, as well as Gil, who felt an odd sense of rivalry toward Lutz. He kept talking about how business with the Gilberta Company was part of his domain as manager of the workshop, so I decided to bring him along. I could give a brief explanation of how to use the letter types in the store, but since I couldn't do any work myself, I would have Gil do the honor. The four of us headed to the Gilberta Company, rattling inside the carriage Benno had sent to pick us up. Daniel's face scrunched up the second we passed through the temple gate and were assaulted by the smell. He had never visited the lower city before. What in the world is this stench? Poop, man. It's poop. This is just how the lower city smells. You have to get used to it. That's the face of someone who's only ever known the pretty noble's quarter and the well-kept temple. I understand. I really do. I had probably made the exact same face the first time I stepped out into the lower city after becoming mine. But it hadn't taken long for me to get used to it and accept it as a natural part of everyday life. Humans were creatures of adaptation, and it really was amazing how we could get used to and endure just about anything. I'm afraid this is part of the task the High Priest has given you, Sir Daniel. Guarding me will necessitate that you visit the lower city. I see. That is one cruel task. Daniel still had his face scrunched up as we arrived at the Gilberta Company. Mark exited the front door of the store to greet us. Thank you for visiting our humble establishment, Lady Mine. Everyone is waiting for you inside. Hello, Mark. Thank you for having me. Apprentice, your hand. Daniel held out his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, but I had no idea what to do. A rich girl would normally allow him to escort her. But I lacked the experience to know how to gracefully allow myself to be escorted down from the carriage. The carriage steps were narrow, and the gap between them was massive for me. Even if I took Daniel's hand, it was possible I would fall over on my way down. Sir Daniel, Sister Mine is still too small to be escorted safely. As I stood frozen with the cold sweat running down my back, Fran took it upon himself to inform Daniel of the situation and carry me down himself. Ah, of course, my mistake, Apprentice. I haven't spent much time around young ones and don't know how to properly accommodate them. Worry not, Sir Daniel. It is I who must hurry and grow so that I may be escorted like a proper lady. Though the road to ladyship is hard enough, then I'm not sure I'll be a proper lady even when I grow up, I added silently as we entered the store. Mark guided us to the usual office. Master Benno, Lady Mine has arrived. Johann, the smith foreman, Benno, and even Lutz were waiting inside for me. I hope you have not been waiting long, I said while entering the office. Both Johann and his foreman gasped with wide eyes. I couldn't blame them for being surprised, though. Unlike how casual and normal I had been before, I was now talking in a dignified tone with 3 companions following behind me. Lady Mine, I thank you for visiting. Benno greeted me, after which Johann and the foreman hurriedly did the same. I sat down in a chair that Fran had pulled back for me, then smiled directly at Johann, who was sitting across from me. Good day, Johann. I was told that you had finished the task I gave you. I did, but... Johann, looking nervously between the 3 people behind me and the foreman, set 2 cloth-wrapped boxes down onto the table. I heard the clinking of metal as the letter types inside knocked against each other. That sound alone was enough to make my heart rate go up. There were too many to fit in a single box without it being too heavy, so we had to split them between 2. I mean, that's fine. Making letter types started with making letter punches, pieces of hard metal with the pattern of a letter protruding from the end, sculptured by filing and chiseling. It took extremely precise work to make one. You needed to carefully chisel and file down the end of a piece of metal around a single centimeter in width and height, which necessitated the precise craftsmanship that Johann specialized in. Once the letter punch was finished, you pressed it into a softer metal to make a matrix, which was what the molds used to cast a letter were called in letterpress printing. The raised letter on the letter punch would be imprinted into the metal matrix. Then you would put said matrix into a hand mold and pour alloy into that. Once the alloy cooled, it was removed from the hard mold, giving you a letter type for the exact same letter as the letter pouch, and the mold could then be refilled to make more letter types for that letter. By repeating this whole process, you can make a set of letters all the exact same shape and size. I'm surprised you finished so quickly. I never thought they would be done this soon. I felt an indescribable excitement in my chest just from staring at the cloth-wrapped boxes. Blood rushed to my head and I let out a tiny sigh while holding a hand against my pounding heart. Feeling like Juliet looking for a vanished Romeo, I stared hard at the cloth, hoping to see through it and into the box. Johann, not noticing my urgency, scrunched his cheek while giving a little embarrassed laugh. Everyone helped a little since they found it so challenging and fun. Johann had made the letter punches and matrices for all the letters, but the other craftsmen, bored as they were with nothing to do over the winter, helped him produce the letter types themselves in volume. That's how he was able to get it done so quick. The foreman, grinning, slapped Johann on the back. We fought over who would pour the alloy the best, and talked about ideas to do it all faster, while laughing our butts off at how hard the work was for a Laharo task. Of course a patron who'd take Johann would want something like this. We'd laugh. It's the guidance of Volcanift, god of smithing. He was teasing Johann, but it seemed that the foreman really did think that Volcanift, the god of smithing, had brought me and Johann together. I needed precise work done, and Johann had the skills I was looking for. I, too, was eternally grateful that we had met. These letter-type things are the fruit of all our hard labor, Johann. Show them to her. Yes, sir. At the foreman's urging, Johann untied and removed the cloth. Beneath were 2 thin boxes the size of a sheet of A4 paper, and within these were lines of silver metal blocks that, while dull in appearance, seemed to twinkle and glitter as the light reflected off their sculpted letters. The sight of all the letters lined up before me was indeed overwhelming. Wow. I picked up one of the letters types, my hand trembling with literal awe. It was a thin piece of silver metal about 2.5 centimeters long, with a firmly indented letter resting on one end. The metal was weighty despite its small size, and I held it up to look at it from every angle. I then took out another letter type and lined them up next to each other, narrowing my eyes as I confirmed whether they were the same height. Any difference in height would have an enormous impact on printing. But the letters were exactly the same height. Better than anything I could have expected. A smile spread across my face before I could even think about stopping it. So, ma'am, are these what you wanted? The foreman's voice knocked me back to my senses. I looked around and saw that Johann was waiting for my appraisal with bated breath. I looked between Johann and the boxes packed full of letter types, then gave a firm nod with the letter type in my hand. They're wonderful. You truly have become Gutenberg. Oh, not this. What? Johann, I award you the title of Gutenberg. Oh god, huh? Everyone stared at me with baffled looks on their faces. Everyone except Lutz, who had gone completely pale and rushed over to shake me by the shoulders. Calm down, mine, he said. I looked up at him in protest while still sitting down. How could I be calm? This is Gutenberg we're talking about. Idiot, you're getting too excited. Lutz was kind of freaking out, but I couldn't stay calm with a completed set of letter types right in front of me. No way. You're just not excited enough, Lutz. This is going to change history, you know. Isn't that exciting? Doesn't that just make you giddy? Go ahead, let your emotions out. Let us share in these feelings of joy. Sorry, mine, but I'm not following at all. It seemed that Lutz couldn't emphasize of my excitement. I looked around and saw that everyone else looked just as confused, like they didn't realize the significance of this at all. Was there anything more sad than being the only one excited in the room? I mean, this is the beginning of the printing age. You're literally bearing witness to the exact moment history was changed forever. I stood up with a clatter and explained the glory of the letter types as passionately as I could, but the reaction I got was subdued at best. This is the second coming of Gutenberg. His first name was Johannes, and now he's changing history as Johann. What a splendid coincidence. It is a coincidence! A fateful meeting of legend. Praise be to the gods. I shot my arms up in the praying stance as Lutz cradled his head. Ma'am, what's this Gutenberg you're talking about? Asked the smithy foreman, blinking in confusion. Happy that at least someone was trying to understand, I clasped my hands together and looked right at him. Gutenberg is a legendary craftsman on the level of a god whose work changed history and books forever. Johann is indeed this city's Gutenberg. As I explained, it occurred to me that letter types weren't the only thing used in printing. You needed paper, ink, and a printing press too. Perhaps everyone was reacting so poorly because it was odd of me to give all the credit to Johann. Oh, I get it. There are a lot of people involved here. The people making the ink, those helping construct the printing press, Benno making the paper, and Lutz selling the books. I shouldn't leave anyone out. You're right, sorry. You're all Gutenberg. You're all members of a big Gutenberg family. I don't want to be part of that family. Benno immediately refused my companionship. What do you mean, Benno? That's disrespectful to the Gutenbergs, who are going to print books and influence the entire world. You should be happy about this, really. Your heart should be pounding with glee, okay? Benno gave me a half-exasperated, half-defeated look before glancing at Lutz, who waved his hands as if to say, I got nothing, and then sighed. Now that the letter types are done, we can finally get started on the printing press. Let's order what we need from a wood workshop right away. We're actually getting onto printing. Wow, just wow. Praise be to Mestinora, goddess of wisdom. As I struck the pose again to praise Mestinora, my glee climaxed and knocked me unconscious. That's why he told you to stop getting excited, girl. Okay, I'll see y'all next time.